I had a near-death experience, and at the same time, I had a eureka moment. And that moment has helped me throughout the rest of my life in mastering my future. And the story I'm about to tell you hopefully will help you to master your future as well. Let me tell you what happened. I'm a proud Canadian, and we live, as some people talk to us about, in the Great White North. And they call it the Great White North because we get a lot of snow in the wintertime. But we embrace that snow. We play ice hockey, we ski, we sit there and go down hills on toboggans, and we cross country ski, we have snowshoes, we have all kinds of things we do. And one day, we got a call from some friends that said, could we come up for the weekend and spend some time at your place? And it was the middle of winter. And we said, sure. So we were thinking, what could we do with their two young lads that they had when they came for the visit? And so I looked through some magazines and things on what you could do in the winter. And I found something that I never heard of before. And it was called a quinzhee. Now, a quinzhee is what you're seeing right here. It's a snow mound that you make up from shoveling snow into a big pile, and then you wait a couple hours. And after a couple of hours, that snow compacts. It falls in on itself, if you will. And then you just dig it out. You can see the hole there. It's almost like an igloo if you think about an igloo. And so you dig it out. It becomes quite solid. You can actually walk on top of it as well. So I thought, this is a great idea. I can make a quinzhee, and I can then bring the fellows in, the little lads in, and we can all go in there and have a good time. So I mounded all the snow up. I waited a couple of hours, and then I started to scrape it out on the inside. And I had most of it done when I reached up to the top with a shovel, and the entire quinzhee collapsed on top of me. And I gave myself a shrug, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I'll just get out of here. But the quinzhee had other ideas. The quinzhee started to settle in on me. And I thought I could move, but I couldn't. I had fallen on my chest. The quinzhee was pushing down on my back, and I had one hand stuck underneath my chest and the other one by the side of my face. And I couldn't move because of my weight on my hands and the weight of the quinzhee collapsing in on me. So I thought, something, I'm just going to wait for my wife to come back from shopping, and she'll dig me out and everything will be fine. So I waited about 20 minutes, and nothing happened. I didn't hear a car coming in the driveway. So I thought, I better really try and get out of here. And what happened was, as mentioned, I could not push my way out. And so I settled in for a second there, and then I thought to myself, I've got to really try something. And then I threw up a little bit. And that was kind of shocking. It was about 3:30 in the afternoon. And I thought, well, that's kind of strange. And then what happened was I decided to have a little sleep. And I had read someplace at one point in time that if you go to sleep in a situation like this, you may not wake up. And I also thought to myself, geez, it's only 3:30 in the afternoon. Why am I feeling tired? Why do I feel like I need to go to sleep? And the answer was, again, shocking. The quinzhee was closing in on me. And as I said, it only takes maybe 2 hours to finally close in. And it was crushing the life out of me. So I had to come up with a new game plan. I had to master my own future. And so I thought out of the box, and I thought, I can't go up. What if I go down? What if I go down? Now I had the one hand underneath my chest, and what I started to do was slowly but surely push some of the snow that was compacted down there away from myself as I pushed up with my back. And finally I pushed away enough snow under myself that I was able to very slowly, 1 inch at a time, get out of the quinzhee. And I realized how close I had come to dying in my own backyard. And I'd been there for maybe an hour and a half by that time. I was all sweating. I was afraid of being in shock or getting some other problem associated with that. And so I decided to get rid of my clothes, put some clothes around me, and get as warm as I could by the fire. And my wife came home and I told her the whole story because she didn't know why I was looking like that. And we hugged each other and we cried. We cried a lot. So my message to this is don't try this at home. Don't try building a Quincy at home. In fact, I found out about a Quincy from a survival magazine article and built it. But there was no warning in there about danger. So I looked up on, of course, the source of all things, which is Wikipedia, and I found this. Wikipedia said it's a Canadian snow shelter that is made from a large pile of loose snow, which is shaped then hollowed. Perfect. But then it says in Wikipedia, dangers. Collapse poses a danger of suffocation for occupants. And then it goes on to say, and you can check this out after this, some users prefer a marker to be left outside the Quincy nearest the heads of sleeping occupants to indicate where rescuers should start digging. I mean, do you believe it? So there are survival videos out there that talk about Quincy. So you can take this first thing as a public service message, if you will. And hopefully, I don't want you to build a Quincy at all. And I just wanted to share that with you because the eureka moment I had was when I reflected on it sometime later, a model or an approach to shaping my future. And that's what I'd like to share with you right now. So when I looked at this whole situation, I realized there are three elements to what happened to me and what can happen to you when you're trying to shape your future. First of all, you have to decide where are you now, then where do you want to be, and how will you get there? Now, in my situation, it was pretty simple. I was stuck where I didn't want to be. I wanted to be out of there, and I wanted to figure out how to get out of there. And so basically, don't try building this at home. Figure out ahead of time a situation that you want to tackle other than building a Quincy. So this is a model or approach you can use to have conversations with yourself or with others on how to master your future. Let's take a look at where are you now? And that's really talking about the current situation. I know it's probably not a life or death situation you're in. It could be, for example, let's do a couple of examples here. You could be living in an apartment, feeling cramped, there's traffic noise, and you say, look, why don't we just move to a small town? Because now that's a situation you want to get out of. Or if you're an organization, you could be falling behind the competition, or if you're a sports team, you may want to increase attendance, for example, or win some more games. But whatever it is, figure out where you are now and articulate it. And then figure out where you want to be and articulate that also. Remember I said somebody may be in an apartment wanting to move to a small town. The next question is, how big is that? How big is that small town? When I say small town to you, do you think of 500 people? Do you think of 1,000 people? 10,000 people? It's really, really important to figure out and articulate where you want to be and put some parameters around that. In a corporation, you may have an objective, really like, where do you want to end? What is your target? Is it 10% of the market? So you want some clearly measurable goals. Or if your sports team, like I mentioned, you may want to increase your attendance by 10%. That's a target or a goal you set for yourself. Remember, if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. And so the next thing to do, point number 3 there, is to brainstorm some options. Look for some game changers that is going to help you to manage your future. You know, for yourself, like I did, it was going underneath myself instead of trying to get out from the top. Or when working with others, it could be the other person that you're working with, or a business or leadership team putting together a strategy on how to grow your business, or maybe a new marketing thrust, or trying to tap into different markets. Whatever, it's going to take some give and take. Let me tell you a story about give and take. It's very important. My wife and I have been married for over 50 years. And that's a long time. As people say, how do you do that, John? I said, well, it's based on compromise. For example, last year I wanted to go to Florida. My wife wanted to go to England. So we compromised and went to England. I'm just saying, sometimes you have to give things up when you're working with a group of people who are trying to reach a goal collectively. The other thing is, Don't get into analysis paralysis. Make change happen. When you figured out where you want to go, execute your ideas. Don't mistake motion for accomplishment. Don't mistake motion for accomplishment. You want to get there, you want to get to that target, and you want to make it happen. You know, we've just gone through a lot of things with a pandemic recently, and a lot of companies were in their survival mode. And a couple of them were, for example, telemedicine. Telemedicine had pushed back on virtual calls for a long time. And COVID forced them to get into survival mode and figure out how they're going to get there from here, how they're going to come through this. And so they figured out they would embrace telemedicine. And what we're seeing now is a hybrid model. Sometimes there's going to be some video calls, some Skype calls, for example, and then some follow-on treatments over the course of the next 6 months, maybe via some in-person and some Skype calls. I also read recently about a gourmet restaurant. The gourmet restaurant figured they would be going out of business until they came up with this unique idea of putting some, gourmet foods into plastic containers, which is something that was the antithesis of what a gourmet restaurant would think about, but they were forced to do it. And they thought out of the box and they did it. The bottom line in all of this is nothing improves without change. Nothing improves without change. So when you're thinking how to do something, think about improving something and how are you going to do it. And this could go anywhere from changing diapers to changing the world and everything in between those two extremes. So how are you going to make a change in your life? How are you going to make things happen? How are you going to be the master of your future? Think about where are you now, where do you want to be, and how will you get there? You know, I mentioned I'm a Canadian, and another great Canadian you may have heard of is Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky is a Canadian hockey legend and sports icon. And he said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I'm going to encourage you right now to give this approach a shot, see what happens. And I wish you nothing but the best in mastering your future. And I want to thank you for the privilege of your time.